Hey everyone, Joe Soto here, and welcome to the Not Your Average Joe Show. We have a Not Your Average Joe with us today. I am thrilled, to have David Mammano, David Gonzo Mammano on the show with us. He says it's not crash and burn, it's crash and learn. We're going to learn what he means by that. We're going to talk about how to overcome adversity, how to rise, how to face everything and rise. That's my definition of fear. So let's get kicked off. Just stay right with me. We'll be right back with you.
This is the Not Your Average Joe Show, where each week we bring you sales, marketing, and mindset strategies you need to get to your next level. And now, here's your host, international business mentor, Joe Soto.
David Gonzo Mammano. Am I saying that right? Welcome to the show.
Hey, can you hear me, Joe? I can't hear you now.
You can't hear me now?
I can't hear you again.
Oh, no.
Awfully strange. Let me plug this back in.
I can hear you fine.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
That is the weirdest thing.
You're having audio problems. That's okay. I can hear you fine. Can everybody else? Hey, Justin's on with us. Justin, can you hear both of us or just one of us? No, now I can't hear him. He heard us both before. Wow. So we'll do a couple little audio checks here. It's okay. We're live and we can edit this part out when it becomes a podcast. We'll give him time to figure out his audio. In the meantime, I'll give a introduction for David. David, for the last 25 years, he started 7 businesses from scratch and now uses those experiences to help others achieve their entrepreneurial dreams. So, David, are you with us yet? Can't hear you yet. Justin says both. Justin, how about now? Is it just me not hearing him, or is it? In fact, let me try and see if maybe my speaker. Better do a little sound audio check here. Yeah, my speaker was fine before. I was able to hear him fine. At the beginning, he heard us both. So, but David could not hear you. Yeah. Well, we have massive audio check. I don't know what to do. David, can you hear me at all? Yeah, he can't. He's hitting the mute. Gotta love StreamYard. Gotta love tech. Thanks for bearing with me, everybody. Let's see if we can't get it fixed here. David, let's see. Let's have him leave. I'm going to have him leave and come back in. There he goes. A little more information about David, my guest today. He's a 3-time Inc. magazine 5,000 growth company winner. He's a TEDx speaker. He's an adjunct professor at University of Rochester. And he's the author of several business and college planning books. Can't wait to get his take on college. Do we send our kids to college? Do we teach them to be entrepreneurs? This is an entrepreneur who started 7 different entrepreneurial ventures from scratch. His book, Crash and Learn, is a smorgasbord of lessons told by different guest authors in his book, sharing their kind of overcoming adversity and turning adversity into opportunity success stories. So really excited. Justin says, I just started the top again when he's up and running. Let's see if we can bring him in. David, I can't hear you, but I can see you. Can you hear me? Luckily, he had a long bio, so I could talk for a long time. By the way, David has a really successful podcast, so to not have audio problems, this has probably been a first for him. I can't hear you. You can hear me, but I can't hear you. I'm going to put a comment up here. There's a way for us to do private comments. Oh, private chat. Here we go. Can't hear you yet.
Oh, you have to unmute me. How about now?
There you are. I can hear you now.
All right. I took off my Yeti. You're just hearing me from my normal computer, if that's okay.
Yeah, it's fine. It's awesome. I gave it an extended bio on you, so everybody's up to speed now on who you are.
Oh, very good. I apologize about that. That's the first time that ever happened to me, but it must be good luck. It means that we're going to have an incredible conversation because it was a little struggle getting to it. So
yeah, so I can hear you fine. If one of you watching, I see a couple of people here in the comments, can give us a thumbs up or say, yeah, we can hear you both now. That would be comforting to know since we're live. Yeah, Ben says sounds great now. That's good. Yay, there we are.
Excellent.
Beggars can't be choosy.
Yes.
David, I just gave what you won't know and what will be published on the actual podcast is the edited version of this. When I give your extended bio, they won't hear about all the audio problems, so it's not a big deal. Well, we are, however, live on multiple platforms. Jay says he can hear us all, so we're all good.
I have
Thomas,
to say,
thanks for being here.
I have to say that my book we're going to talk about is called Crash and Learn, and I think you mentioned it. And so we just crashed and learned a little bit, so it's perfect.
That's right. So if I put it here, there it is. Right there's the book. For those of you that are,
what a guy! Thank you.
For those of you that are watching the live stream, now I normally, for people who know me and follow the show, I own a lot of books and I'm a seeker of wisdom and always trying to figure stuff out and learn from all the greats out there. This is actually a book I read on my Kindle and loved it. Loved the stories. I already shared with everyone that your book, not only did it rise to the top of Amazon's bestsellers list, but it's full of really inspiring stories. And a couple of them really hit home with me. A couple of them I was really able to relate to. But right now, we're in turbulent times. Let me change the camera setting here. And, I think turning adversity into opportunity is a great topic. A lot of my audience are independent marketing consultants and coaches, entrepreneurs, small business owners, and would love to get some insight because I like interviewing people who interview a lot of people on these subjects, which you do, which your book kind of came out of from, it sounds like, from a lot of the interviews and relationships that you've had and hearing some of these success stories. And what I like about the book is that David does a really great job of sharing the story of these people in the book, but then also they lay out their, 4 or 5 or, 3 or 4 or 5 action items or kind of takeaways from each chapter, which I really loved. And I was able to make a lot of notes based on that when I originally read it. And then I'm like, I just want to get David on here so he can share some of this. So David, first of all, I did give a little bit of your bio, but, I said, over the last 25 years, you started 7 businesses from scratch before now taking the time to inspire people through the Gonzo Experience podcast, which is very good, everyone. And everyone should subscribe to that podcast. It's called the Gonzo Experience. Am I got that right?
You did. Thank you.
Yeah, one of the ones I recently heard was Shep Hyken's new book coming out, I'll Be Back. And that was a terrific interview. So, but give everybody a little bit of background on that, like 7 businesses from scratch. Tell us a little bit about your background. And then if you don't mind, I have some, very targeted questions for us to kind of rapid fire get through over the next 20 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you for that intro, even when I couldn't hear or listen to it. I'm sure it was fantastic, Joe. And, so I had graduated college way back in 1991, and I went into the real world for a little while, for about 3 years. And I was in radio sales and, had like my boss, just didn't like having a boss and had that constant itch to just start my own quote unquote empire. And while I still had the job, I was thinking about what that would be. Right. And I kind of looked at what I like doing anyway. And I looked at my hobbies, loved helping young people with their future. Right. I was on the volunteer for junior achievement. I was a volunteer for the Big Brother, Big Sister program, took out a little, high school kid once a week. And then also this camp for kids with cancer. So I, volunteered there as well. So I obviously liked helping young people. And then I also, when I was in college, I ran the college newspaper and I loved it. Now, keep in mind, this is the 80s and 90s when print was still viable, right? And
I was a columnist for our college newspaper. So
I was a columnist and I also sold advertising as well. And I loved it. And so I decided in 1995 to quit my real job and start a magazine. So I started a magazine called Next Step. And the whole idea was to help high school students with college, career, and life planning. And what we did is we gave it out for free in bulk to all the high schools in Rochester, New York, my hometown. And we sold ads to make our money, mostly colleges, banks for student loans, the military, right? And made a profit. So then we went to Buffalo and Syracuse, our 2 neighboring cities. Then we went to all New York State the following year. And we started making some real good money. And then I ended up franchising it. And lo and behold, a few years later, we sold franchises in every state. We were in all 50 states. We were reaching about 3 million high school students per year.
Wow.
In about 20,000 high schools. And what I had done is, my entrepreneurial ADHD is, get to a certain level and I'd want to start something new. So I started, creating separate businesses around the magazine. So I started a student loan company. I started a retail center for college and career planning. I started an online school. I started another magazine for high school guidance counselors. And those were just some of them, right? So we did really well. We were an Inc. magazine, fastest growing 5,000 company 3 years in a row. We were a Rochester top 100 company. Lots of awards for our content, which really meant the most to me. It was a great ride, but that damn digital revolution started to really pound us, and it just started a nosedive. So we ended up going all online, like a lot of magazines and newspapers have. And then I sold it because it wasn't really exciting business for me anymore. It became more of a cost per lead transactional business. Colleges would pay for the student leads instead of just general advertising. And it just really was not that exciting for me anymore. So I sold it. And that was in 2016, about 5 years ago. And then I ended up starting another company called Avanti, which means move forward in Italian. So very similar to Next Step. And that became a company that we would help people start and grow businesses. So I developed a coaching program for new business owners. We started doing events for businesses where I would have all-day speakers and sell sponsorships and all that great stuff. Started my podcast in October of 2016 as well. Back then it was called the Avanti Entrepreneur Podcast. And so we had a lot of services for entrepreneurs. It all ended up, the biggest revenue generator kind of naturally came into entrepreneurs wanting monthly events, right? So I ended up creating this monthly meetup in Rochester for entrepreneurs where they would pay an annual membership fee, and we'd get together once a month after work, different locations, could be country clubs, other businesses. And the first hour-ish, beer, wine, hors d'oeuvres, networking. And then the second half, I bring in a speaker.
Brilliant.
They could learn something.
What'd you charge for that, by the way?
$1,000 a year.
Yeah, I think this is a great business development idea for people looking for local business clients or wanting to kind of facilitate and be that a local authority in their market where they can pull people together. We talk about Facebook groups a lot, but I still believe in the power of local meetups and marketing like that. It's awesome.
Oh, it was wonderful. And it was an upsell for my coaching programs, sponsors. We ended up getting a lot of sponsors. And then we started kind of licensing the concept to different cities. So we went to Buffalo, Toronto, Burlington, Vermont, New York City, New Jersey. And then COVID hit, right? And, so now another disruptor to my business, first it was that digital revolution killed my print. And then second, it was a pandemic killed in-person events, right? So put it online and it just wasn't the same. Right, because I think people were getting zoomed out, not getting, first online event we had like maybe 45 people. Second one was like maybe 30, and it just started to go down, right?
Yeah.
And I certainly wasn't signing up any new members, right? I mean, people. So here we are, and I'm surviving by doing contract gigs at companies. I'm still doing my podcast, which I love doing. Doing some coaching programs for people that want to start podcasts. And then looking as we hopefully come out of COVID, as we record this live here, about 3 weeks ago, we were all like, yay, it's over. And now this thing called the Delta variant looks scary, right? So are we coming out of it? I hope so. Maybe we tripped and fell and we're going to get back up again. But I do have some new ideas on how to, rise like the phoenix again.
Yeah, love it. And I mean, you're in the trenches with all the entrepreneurs that are also watching this, doing the same thing they're doing, which is, I hate the overused term of the word pivot, but maybe it's what Jeffrey Gitomer, our mutual friend, calls shifting. You got to shift, not pivot.
Right.
And be flexible enough to do that. One of my favorite chapters in your book was written by Susan Doyle Ingram, and she wrote a book called Overcoming Betrayal. So I have a couple notes on it, and it resonated with me because she had some really good lessons out of that chapter. But I remember having a different type of adversity when I started my marketing agency back in 2010. I had a couple of business partners I started it with who had smaller percentage ownerships, but nonetheless ownership in the business with me. And both had an element of betrayal over my first year and a half of starting. She talks about in the book how somebody that she'd kind of poured her soul into helping and working with ended up kind of, betraying her in business, and how that took, I think, like 90% of her clients. They were behind her back. And I faced something similar to that. And I think that when people look at the entrepreneurial road, they maybe when they're starting their business, they don't anticipate having some of these hurdles or obstacles, a pandemic popping up, the digital revolution popping up, betrayal in a business where it could be anything from somebody taking your clients or taking your money. In my case, there's a little bit of both. How do you overcome that? So what's you have such an optimistic mindset. You interview people that have this unstoppable mindset. I know Karen Calder's chapter was also one of my favorites. She talks about turning what's called a setback to comeback, and talks about reversing your self-sabotaging habits and thoughts. But what would be some mindset advice you'd give to people who are watching who need to kind of figure it out between the ears?
Yeah, there's, you're making me think of this famous comic drawing of, it's like a pelican trying to swallow a frog. And you ever see this where the frog is like holding onto the pelican's neck and like won't go down, and it's like never give up, right?
Yep.
And I feel like that frog, I quite often, right? And as a lot of entrepreneurs do, it's not for the faint of heart. Every day is a new challenge. Sometimes are absolutely wonderful, and sometimes we just have no idea how we're going to make it to the next day. And those same exact feelings can happen within hours of each other, right?
Yeah.
And so if you are a true entrepreneur, you for some bizarre reason, that becomes your drug of choice, right? Like you know that you will find a way to carry on, right? And we're survivors, right? We're like cockroaches, 10,000 years later, here we are, right?
We're still here.
Or whatever.
We're not going away.
We're not, yeah. And
despite the pandemic.
Yeah, and even if there are spurts of time when you have to go get a job, or not be an entrepreneur for a while, you still have hopes and dreams that you will be one again soon, right? And so it's just a matter of am I being the full entrepreneur that I want to be right now? No, I mean, we're, in a pandemic, and I really can't do everything that I want to do right now because, I love getting together and hosting hundreds, if not thousands, of entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
As we come out of COVID, I have dreams of planning some retreats where, we're all together and we're doing, we're in Denver on a dude ranch, or we're in Sicily, exploring old Roman ruins, or climbing Mount Etna. Like, that's the stuff I want to do with entrepreneurs now. I want to combine learning with adventure. And so I was feeling pretty good about it until we heard this new phrase, the Delta variant, a couple of weeks ago. So am I still planning? Absolutely. But, when am I going to feel confident to put that stake in the ground? I don't know. Hopefully soon. Right. So
it's delayed gratification, but I'll be the first to go on the adventure with you.
All right. Sounds good. We'll put you on the list.
Side note, Justin says, what's the story behind the name Gonzo?
Oh, great question. So I went to University of Buffalo, 1987 to 91, and I was in a fraternity called Sigma Alpha Mu. And we actually used our fraternity name. So I was named, by the brothers at the time, Gonzo. And we actually, that was our name in college. Like if you ran into, let's say you ran into a woman who now would be about 51 and said, "Oh, did you know David Mammano in college?" She'd probably say no. "Oh, did you know Gonzo?" "Oh yeah, I loved him." Like those were our names, right? Yeah. And I still run into people from college. We still hang out a lot, fraternity brothers, and I'm Gonzo. And so why Gonzo? Well, I would like to think it was because of Hunter S. Thompson, Gonzo journalism. But in reality, it was because I apparently, not so apparently, especially then, looked like the Muppet Gonzo. This thing is not tiny. And so they very lovingly named me Gonzo after the
Muppet. That's funny. Great story. Great story. What's tell us what your without taking an example from the book, maybe a different example that's not in the book, one of your favorite kind of overcoming adversity stories that you've heard.
From me personally, or from somebody else?
From somebody else.
Well, I like to go back to somebody who we all know, and I've met him, but it was years ago, and I'm sure he won't remember me. But whenever you listen to Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V, tell his whole story, he tells about when he was first getting started in the whole social media world in doing videos, that nobody was watching his videos. I think he talks about his first video that he put on YouTube got like 3 views. Right. Yeah. And he was like, "Oh, wow, maybe, this is not going to work. Maybe I'm doing something wrong." But lo and behold, he stuck with it. Right. And I think that's a great message of endurance. And to, even though when something is not working and you feel like you're crashing and burning, like just keep on walking forward. You never know. I mean, Winston Churchill has a great quote: "When you're walking through hell, don't stop." Right. Yeah. So, and I think that's the lesson of crashing and learning is don't crash and burn, crash and learn, continue to move forward. And it's, you look at examples, like I think every famous person that has made it big has, dozens of stories when they were like, "What the hell am I doing? I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it." But they keep on going forward. 1-800-GOT-JUNK, Brian Scudamore, who you may have heard of. He was on my podcast. He talks about how, they grew the company to a certain level and then everything stopped. It just didn't grow anymore. And he thought he was like, that was it. He thought he was failing. And what he had to do was very difficult, is he let all the people go that helped him build the company to that level, which was so hard, right? These were people that were friends and put in blood, sweat, and tears, but they were the right people to get him from 0 to maybe 2 million, 3 million, but they weren't the right people to get him to 100 million. And, so he had to really make the difficult decision to let everybody go and kind of start over, right? And so I thought that was incredible for him to do. And every entrepreneur that I've talked to has a story like that. Ed Milet I interviewed, right? Yeah. Ed Milet was so broke that he was living in a hotel with his fiancée at the time, and he was so broke that they shut off the water, and they had a shower and brushed their teeth in the pool, right? How insane is that? Now that the guy's worth like $500 million, he's got 2 massive houses, Ferraris, planes. I mean, so so it just talks about being obsessed with success and not letting it. When they, he was probably pretty inspired to get a job when they shut off his water, right? But yeah. But just keep on going, man.
Great story. I know Ed Milet. I didn't know his story. That's an interesting share.
Yeah. I interviewed Grant Cardone on my show, and he was bottoming out with drugs and alcohol. Yeah. And his mother said, "I never want to see you again until you're clean." And and she meant it, and he knew it, and that was the inspiration for him to, get his act together, and look at him now, right? Yeah. So these are very famous, successful people that completely crashed, like hard. Yeah. When your water is shut off, like. You don't realize how much you use water until it's shut off, right?
Yeah, right. Justice says never underestimate the hunger and drive. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so if you just joined us, we keep talking crash and burn and crash and learn, right? So the name of his book is Crash and Learn. You can buy it on Amazon. I'll put a link in the comments. I'll put a link in the podcast notes. Don't worry. So you'll be able to get it from there. I'd like to also ask you a little bit about your take, since you have this background of working and helping and seeing a path, and for the young generation, high school students who are thinking about college. What's your take on college nowadays? Do you skip college and just become an entrepreneur if that's your goal? Do you think college is worth it? Should parents be, advising their kids to get a good education and go to college? This is a tough one. I have 9 children, and I've got 7 of them still in the home under the age of 17. One going into his senior year, looking at schools. What's your advice?
So,
and has asked the question, maybe do I even really need to go to college? And it's actually a tough one to answer nowadays for me. So I'm putting you on the spot, David.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. And somebody that's a believer in education. I'm a believer in lifelong education. I think this concept of let's pay $60,000 a year for 4 years and then we're done, and maybe another $100,000 for grad school, is definitely a man-made creation to make money, right? Mm. And it really doesn't fit in doesn't make sense for a lot of people these days. Now, there are some, careers where you need to go to college, right? Like, yeah. I don't want a doctor operating on me that hasn't, so I'm seeing the comment. He agrees, right? Justin agrees. I don't want a doctor operating me that hasn't gone to medical school, right? I want my lawyer, my CPA to have studied law and accounting, right? Yeah. But for each one of those, there are probably, 97 students that went to school for psychology or sociology.
Hitting hard, close to home here.
Well, I swear to God, next time you're at a restaurant, ask your waiter, who is 22 years old, what he or she majored in. And they're probably going to say communications, acting, theater, sociology, psychology. Yeah, right. And like, all right, and you're a waiter, and you owe $800 a month in student loans for the next 30 years, And so, did those people really need to go to college, right? Now, I'm not saying don't learn, but maybe create your own learning path. Like, what interests you? Can you just take courses on that stuff? For your whole life. You could take non-accredited classes at most colleges, online, in person. Most cities now have these learning centers where you can go and take classes. Yeah. And so I'm not saying don't learn, like definitely learn, but is the age-old journey of 4 years of college right for everybody? I'm going to say no at this point because of the cost too. Because like when I went to UB, I went to SUNY Buffalo, University of Buffalo. It's a state school. It literally with room and board, it was $5,000 a year. I think when I graduated, it made it up to $5,500 a year, right?
Nice.
So now even these state schools are like almost $30,000 a year, let alone a private school.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
So, is it, do you want your architect to go to school? Yes. Your doctor? Yes. But, I'm going to say guys like me and maybe you too, who are businessmen, right? We can learn a lot, like in the streets, we'll say, right? By just doing it. And joining organizations like EO, Vistage, et cetera. Watching podcasts like this to learn more, reading books to learn more about what you got to do to be a successful entrepreneur.
Yeah, finding a business coach. You use the term growth specialist in your bio on your website. I put your website link, davidmammano.com. Here on the screen. I'll put it in the comments. It'll be also in the podcast notes. That's Justin wrote, find a coach or join a mastermind to what you're saying, and you'll learn more, if not much faster, in a much more condensed period of time, right? from some people that are in the trenches having these real world experiences.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. No, there's coaches, there's mentors. There are, just, or Joel is saying, doing, absolutely. Mastermind groups, retreats, best way to learn. Absolutely.
Thomas is asking, what's the turning point in a crash and what inspires to go ahead?
Well, I think just, the turning point is when you decide, you know what, I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to get up. I'm going to work out. I'm going to eat well. I'm going to drink a lot of water. I'm going to surround myself with positive people. And I'm going to get back on top again. No turning back. Because it's really easy to get consumed with the fear and anxiety of a failure. But, you need to regroup and just, even though you don't know how you're going to do it, you need to continue to move forward.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome, David. David, we're running out of time, but man, what's one thing you would tell somebody who's a struggling entrepreneur right now? What would be the last piece of advice you'd give them so they could hold their head up high and go out there and pursue their dreams?
Go do something right now that brings you joy and energy. That's what I would say, because you're going to feel tremendous after that, and it's going to inspire you to do more of it. And can that be your business?
Love it. Beautiful. Let's end on that. That's fantastic. I hope everyone goes out, gets the book Crash and Learn by David Mammano, and make sure you subscribe to his podcast, The Gonzo Experience. He's a fantastic. In fact, I'm learning. I'm new to podcasting. This is like my 35th or something episode. I'm still kind of new to this, but been learning a lot by listening to how you listen and work with the guests. You got a terrific podcast. I think you should keep doing it, David, and look forward to seeing what your next venture is and participating in it if we get an opportunity to. I appreciate everyone being on the show. And, David, stay with me. I'll talk with you here after the show. Everybody else, I'll see you next time.
Tune in next week for the Not Your Average Joe Show with international business mentor Joe Soto.